gonna film an intro.
Oh.
And then we'll go right into it.
Do you want the jumps in the background?
No, you can stand right here so you're ready to go with me. I'll do a rodeo 5.
Okay.
So I pretty much just go like straight trajectory.
Okay.
Zero drift. Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com. Up here on this ARW 100 that I've been testing pretty extensively over the past, gosh, probably a month now. Super fun. Last year I spent a lot of time on the 94 and I was really excited to try out this 100. Not the best on groomers, but super fun off-piste, and then just fantastic here in the park. I know 100's wide for some people in the park, but I tend to really like that width. So we'll meet you back in the studio. We'll do a little Q&A session with Bob, because I've spent considerably more time on these than Bob. But in the meantime, we're gonna go through this park. Only second day hitting park jumps of the season, so wish me luck. Hey skiers, here we are back in the studio. The adrenaline has worn off from the first day of doing tricks on park jumps.
You got some sweet air.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if I've ever talked to you about this, but I around mid-December, my body starts craving the feeling of like doing a handful of those tricks that I did this morning. It's so hard to explain. Like, it's not mental, it's like physical.
Yeah, I got you.
I feel it.
Yeah.
So today I got to satisfy all those desires.
I'm the same way with like zipper lines of moguls. Like,
yeah, you're like...
my knees just need to bend a certain way.
Yeah, like your hips need to,
totally.
angulation and stuff.
Yep, I gotcha.
It's weird how that happens, but super fun. And here it is. Here's this ARW 100. Bob's got the ARV 100 over there. Before we get into any details, nice reminder that Armada's making these skis exactly the same. So I opted for the ARW 100. I just really like this graphic. I've got it flipped around the wrong way, but it still looks good.
It shows them both ways.
Yeah, there you go.
But
I think that's arguably the correct way, but now that I'm looking at it more, it's like it kind of works in that direction too.
You skied them this way this morning, so.
Well, I like to switch it up.
Yeah, as you should.
You like to, I don't like to damage one edge more than the other. And speaking of edge damage, we'll talk more about that as we go through this, because there's some cool technology there. And I don't really have any profound thoughts to share before we do construction and shape, do you?
No, just to kind of expand on what you said, they're making them all in the same lengths too, so you can get the longest length in both graphics.
Yes, and I believe that's 186.
Yeah, 186 in the 100.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think the 94 is a 185. I'm not 100%, but that's what I think.
Well, now that you've brought it up, now we're wrong or right, who knows? But yeah, it is cool. I like that, and I like that they're just giving you a lot of options.
Right.
And, I think like the women's ski conversation is always an interesting conversation, and like when is it beneficial to have women's specific construction, when is it not? I would say in the twin tip world, it's generally, you don't need women-specific construction. And like, this ski is so light already that like, I don't even know what that would be.
Right. What are you gonna do? Make a light and mobile ski even lighter and
more mobile? Right.
I don't
For
think
what
there's
purpose?
a need.
There's no purpose. So, Bob, you've become the construction expert, or at least the construction presenter. Do you want to kind of take us through what's going on inside these skis?
Sure. We have a lightweight Karuba wood core. You had mentioned that, and the lightweight and mobility. I'm going to throw this thing on the scale.
As you should.
Just from the start. This is the 178, I believe?
179.
179, thank you. And we're just under, am I tared properly? Yes, I am.
It should be just under 1,700.
So just under 1,700 grams, which...
1670?
Yeah. And when you ski them, you can feel it. It's not only light on the scale, but it's light on your feet.
100%.
Which is really just a testament to that Karuba wood core and just that light and energetic feel that it delivers. And that's kind of the bulk of the story in terms of the build of the ski. The other main part, and you had alluded to this in terms of edge damage and holding up over time, is the application of their wedge wall construction technology. We've seen more and more of this style pop up in terms of kind of combining and bonding elements through joinery techniques. And what did you say? A mechanical
bond.
A mechanical bond. So they take their wood core and they're basically milling a slit into the side of it and then pouring the sidewall into that.
Yeah, angled.
Yeah, angled into the sidewall, angled into the core of the ski, and then putting it in the press. So that's the mechanical bond.
Yeah.
They're bonding it by pressing it together and having it be joined into the core structure of the ski.
Yeah, and I like to think about, like, every time you hit a rail, it's pushing those two things together.
Yeah.
Rather than, like, if you think about a vertical connection between a sidewall and a wood core, nothing is getting pushed together. If you're impacting this way, if anything, it's going to split the sidewall and the core apart.
Yeah,
laterally.
That's why that angle is important.
Yeah, it's huge.
Right, because it's taking it and putting a three-dimensional structure to it.
Yep.
So it's not just two elements rubbing against each other. There's more, I guess, more going on in terms of the three-dimensional structure of
and
the
they
ski.
spell it fun too. It's W 3 capital D G E
Jwall.
W A L L. So they like emphasize, like 3D is like capitalized basically to kind of like give you a sense of what's going on in there.
Yeah, and it makes sense. And we just discussed kind of the difference between this and their old way of doing AR50, AR75, AR100, kind of going from full sidewall tapering to caps. And this is, it looks like a smoother taper. So there's, just a little bit of that cap, but it stays the same width throughout. So it's a gradual thinning of the core as it gets to the tips and tails. And that's kind of what we normally would expect from a park-oriented ski.
Yep. The last thing I'll say about construction is there is an ash binding insert underfoot, which is really important for a ski like this. You know, there's no carbon in here. There's no metal. There's no crazy additives in here. So I think it's really important to have that ash. If it wasn't there, you'd be ripping bindings out left and right out of Karuba.
And think of where we came from with the old ARVs, which had more ash to them. So that's
that's what made them so much heavier.
Yeah. So that's it's a pretty stark difference. And I think that we talked about this in one of the twin tip reviews where Idolo kind of took over from where that
And that has like the older construction.
Yep.
Flex pattern, pretty soft, but not the softest.
It's consistent.
Yes,
that's
it is.
That's what I like about it, is that it's a consistent flex. And so, when we get to a Q&A section, we can talk about this further, but kind of some different skis that have less consistent flex patterns and how they line up with this is a pretty interesting conversation.
Yes, I think so too. And then for shape, I think shape is really cool. I think the construction progression from old ARV, old ARW to this is impressive, and I think you could say the same about shape. To me, they're really just bringing it into a more modern format. So rocker is fairly substantial, I would say, for a twin tip, and there's a good amount of tail rocker as well. Not quite the same in length, which is reflected in the fact that it doesn't have a true center mount point option. It is like a couple centimeters back from true center, which has been totally fine for me. And then I think the big thing for shape is this increase in early taper. And it's half a mental thing and half an actual performance thing. Like looking down at your ski or just looking at it like anywhere, it just feels like it's going to be very, very catch-free. And I think that does carry over to its actual performance, but it also just gives you this confident feel. But I don't want people to forget about the amount of camber in this ski either. That's like pretty high-rise camber, and it's got a nice kind of snappy flex pattern to it, which gives the ski a lot of kind of pop and energy, which I think is important. I think if you
Yeah.
didn't have that much camber, the ski wouldn't feel nearly as lively and kind of dynamic as it can.
Yeah, and you think about another Armada like a Declivity 82 Ti, which has lots of positive camber. Like
Yep.
they're really building that energy into the ski. And this certainly follows suit. It kind of gives it that slightly more traditional feel, which I think plays against your early taper discussion,
Sure.
which is a little bit more modern and progressive.
Yeah. But I think both of those things are beneficial, and I
Yeah.
think they work together really well in this ski.
Sure.
That's about it
Yeah.
for shape and construction. Do you have some questions for me? Do you want to start
I do.
with
I brought my props.
do you want to start with on-piste focused questions, despite that not really being the focus of this ski?
No, but you know, it's hard to deny because they ski really well on trail. My question that I had written was to please compare the on-trail characteristics of this ski to other similar 100 millimeter twin tips, and I wrote down Chronic 101 and Playmaker 101 as examples.
Very similar.
Yeah.
I suppose I've spent more time on the Playmaker 101 than the Chronic 101, so maybe I'll answer it in regards to that.
Yep.
They're very, very similar. Something that I find between the two is this feels a little bit more damp. The Playmaker feels maybe a touch more energetic, but very, very similar. And they both, I guess, speaking to generalities of what happens with skis like that, is they certainly both have their limitations on trail.
Yeah.
Particularly in a carving format. I don't know if I'm answering a future question or not, but I'm just going to keep
It's a
talking.
discussion. We're fine.
Sure, awesome. They can carve. They certainly can carve, but it requires like what I would call delicate weighting. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit more deft in where you're putting your pressures.
Yep, and perhaps counterintuitively, I think they require a pretty high edge angle.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, it comes down to, I would say, their lack of torsional stiffness.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're at kind of when you're barely tipping them up, it like doesn't really want to grip super well. The ski will just kind of fold sort of in like a lateral way. But if you're up on a high edge angle and you're weighting properly, and you like have a good amount of trust for the ski, they can carve. They're fun.
So we had like soft groomers this morning.
Yeah.
And like I was mainly watching you follow Matt, and you were so 18 meter turn radius on your ski there.
That sounds right. Yep.
And Matt was on something with a 21 meter radius.
Yep.
And you were staying right inside him.
Yep.
Turn for turn.
Yep.
Carving with. He was on a much more carving oriented ski.
Yeah, we can say he was on a Black Rose Justice.
Black Rose Justice,
Yep.
like metal, like meant to turn.
Yep, way more torsional stiffness.
Yeah,
Yep.
and from my perspective, it looked like you were lining up really, really well with his carves.
Yeah, it's funny because it's a park ski, so like my edges underfoot are like honestly getting kind of rounded.
Yeah.
So the more and more and more that I ski it on rails, unless I have a fresh tune on there, that like the more and more and more delicate that I have to be. But yeah, it still can do it. And then kind of sticking to on-piste performance, everything outside of carving is fantastic.
Right. Short turns
on the side of the trail,
little turns,
slashes, skids, butters, like whatever you want to do. You can just side slip down the whole trail if you want. So they do all that stuff super, super well. They love side hits. They love 180s. They love skiing switch. So it helps me remember that there's more to skiing than just carving.
Sure.
And I have plenty of skis in my personal skiing arsenal as well as our demo rack right out there that we can just take out and carve on.
Right.
So whatever its lack of carving performance is, and I would say it's fairly significant, its lack of carving performance, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
Like, what would a Declivity 92 exist for if this just ripped GS turns?
Yeah, they got to make more skis somehow.
Well, yeah, and there's like, a ski will always have limitations.
Right. You want to move on?
Sure.
Okay.
This is like nerve-wracking.
This is kind of off-piste.
We can move to off-piste.
Okay.
That's perfectly fine. I think we've covered it. Like, playful,
Yeah.
smeary.
It's a little different.
Sure.
How does the free ride component of the ski positively or negatively affect the park performance? Is it too wide, too light, too turny, or just fine?
Oh, that's interesting.
So we're mixing a free ride with park.
Can I lean more towards free ride in my answer?
You can.
I think it's the right blend.
And by free ride, I'm meaning more off-piste.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Trees,
I'm using those
bumps,
interchangeably for now.
open bowls,
Yeah,
stuff like that.
softer snow powder.
Yep. They have a ski called the ARV or ARW 88.
Yep.
That is pretty much a dedicated park ski. Even the 94 feels pretty darn focused on park. So this should have some free ride performance,
Yep.
but I don't think it takes away from its park performance, at least for a certain type of skier. So me being 37, like I have reasonable demands. Sorry, my microphone's freaking out. I have reasonable demands as a park skier, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like I'm not going out there like learning new tricks. I'm basically doing the same tricks that I've been doing for 20 years or however long it's been, and it does just great. And then when you take it off trail, it is an absolute blast. And like pretty much everything that I said about how it skis on a groomer kind of applies to off-piste as well. Like, you know, taking carving out of it, because carving typically isn't like something that most people do when they go off-piste. Obviously you can, but I think that's scenario dependent. It doesn't have like tremendous longitudinal stability when you're skiing off trail. You know, if you want a chargy, just point it down the fall line and just rip, again, like declivity 102.
Right.
Like that's more appropriate for that kind of stuff. So this is just like extremely bouncy and very, very agile. You know, here in Vermont, we have a ton of tight trees, and I'm skiing this pretty darn close to center.
Yeah.
And it still is just incredibly easy to release the tail edge and get the ski to kind of wiggle around through stuff. And then that edge release is just awesome too. If you want to throw your skis completely sideways in soft snow, you can do it on this. And I don't think we have video footage, but there's some like pictures of me from last year just throwing up massive clouds of snow. And it was just because this ski is just so easy to kind of drift and skid and slash.
And you don't find it to be too light for that?
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's where the longitudinal stability thing is a limitation.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't do as well on it off-piste as me, I would venture a guess.
In softer snow. Like I would love to ski this in the trees.
And open terrain and speed.
Right.
That's kind of where, like, since we're talking about stability, I'm 155 pounds.
Yeah.
So I don't like need that much. It's like when we were talking about Candide and like his skis being strong. Like, yeah, Candide's tiny, so that works really well for him. So there is a limitation there. There's like a little bit of an asterisk, but overall it's super fun off trail. It's just don't expect it to be chargy.
Right.
The other thing you can do on it is like ski backwards in soft snow pretty well. You know, we like did that on that recent bent 100 discussion.
Yep.
When we like talked about how skiing backwards in soft snow can be tricky and how they improved it on that ski. This is even better.
Right.
You know, because there's more rocker taper at least in the tail, so it helps a lot.
Sweet. How does it stack up against some other non-metallic freeride skis with tail rocker, not just twin tips? So Black Ops 98, Kamix, QST 98, and M-Free 99 come to mind in terms of non-metallic powered twin tips that are not really more freeride twin tips than park twin tips.
It's a cross between a Kamix and a QST 98 with a softer flex pattern.
Like, would you...
Does that help?
Yes. You would still rather ski like park on this than a QST 98.
100%.
Yeah.
Yes. And the Kamix.
And the Kamix.
Yes. What were the other skis on there?
M-Free 99.
And the M-Free 99.
And the Black Ops 98.
And the Black Ops 98.
So
I'd rather ski this in the park than all four of those.
So you think these fall more to the park, playful, maneuverable side than these other skis?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Black Ops 98 might be like the exception.
Yeah.
But that ski's so much heavier that it requires a different skill level.
Yeah.
Anybody could ski this in the park. I would say most people would want to go narrower, but even like a fairly new park skier would do just fine on this ski. Where a Black Ops 98, if you're new to the park, good luck.
It's rough.
Yeah.
My next two questions are a little bit different. So if you want to keep crossing into park before we move in there.
No, we can go to park now.
We can do that. I don't really have a quick question written down, but I feel like this new taper shape is something we've been talking about lately for park performance.
Yes, I love it.
And you love it in this as well as
Playmaker.
some, Revolt 90, stuff like that.
Yep.
Is that kind of the best thing about it in terms of its park performance, do you think?
Great question.
Thanks.
To me, the best thing about it is, as a park ski, is how light it is and how damp it is.
Yeah.
So it's not stiff, it's not like strong, it doesn't have that longitudinal stability that we've been talking about, but it does have like this kind of quiet, supple flex pattern. So the swing weight is really light for spinning on jumps or spinning onto rails or switch ups or whatever, but it never feels harsh.
Yeah.
So when you're like landing a jump, it kind of feels like suspension. It's like easing you into the landing rather than feeling like harsh.
There's a balance.
What's a synonym for harsh?
Rough.
Sure. Yeah. It doesn't feel rough at all. So that to me, that's its highlight in the park. The taper shape is something that I have learned to really like as a park skier, because again, it gives you confidence because it has so much forgiveness. So this morning was like really flat light.
Yeah.
And like that's pretty nerve-wracking jumping, especially at my age, like not really having proper depth perception of like when the landing is going to come. And you can probably see it in a couple of clips. Like I thought the landing was coming sooner than it did. And not landing perfectly balanced or perfectly centered. Like I think you can see like one of my skis kind of wash out at some point. This lets that happen without being harsh or like without hurting.
Yeah.
Where a ski without that, so a couple things, a ski that's stiffer or a ski that doesn't have that taper, and especially a combination of both of those things, can be kind of punishing if you don't land perfectly, like you feel it through your whole body. It's like kind of a shock to your system. And then the other thing, I haven't done this really that much on these, mostly just off like side hits and stuff like that, because again, like second day back on park jumps, I'm still easing into all my tricks. It takes a while these days.
New park too.
Yeah, new park, figuring out the jumps, all that stuff. Visually, this always helps me spinning switch.
Yeah.
Because that's always been, admittedly, that's been like probably the biggest issue with my personal park skiing is like my tendency to pre-spin a little bit, spinning switch. And when I'm really on it and like have been skiing a lot and I'm feeling super comfortable, it's not a problem because I'm very patient on takeoffs and stuff like that. But that doesn't always happen. Like whether I'm tired or like haven't done the tricks much this season and I'm really nervous, I do worry about catching an inside edge on takeoff spinning switch, because that is literally the worst feeling on skis that I can possibly think of. You're lucky that it probably never happened to you.
Nope.
But it's
zero times.
It's literally terrifying because you catch and then you start pitching forward towards the landing, like basically Running Man, trying to like keep your feet underneath you, and it's just awful. This shape, in my mind, basically will never catch. Obviously it could, if you were taking off both inside edges and then like pre-spun, you would catch because there's an edge there. But if you're taking off like a flatter base or off like both right edges, like I often do when I'm spinning switch, it's pretty much never going to catch.
Yeah.
So it just gives me a lot of confidence.
Would you rather ski something like this that's light and mobile versus something that we skied that Revolt 96 from Vocal last year that has a similar kind of shape but is heavier? So like when it comes to rails, do you like something that's lighter like this or a little bit more substantial like that Vocal?
I like the lightweight feel now, but again, I'm 37.
Yeah.
Like all the kids that I coach, they ski those heavier skis and they don't even think twice about it.
Like a K2 poacher.
Poacher, yeah, yeah, all those things that are a little bit heavier. Revolt 96, and for them, they're so strong and they're so hard on their equipment that like that's actually more of a benefit to them than for somebody like me who like. I'm pretty calculated these days.
Right.
Like, if I'm not landing relatively perfectly, something has gone wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. So for me, I don't need that kind of limitless stability and all that durability, because chances are I'm landing okay.
Yeah.
And then I benefit more from the swing weight, because the older you get, the harder all these park tricks are. So having a light ski is just really beneficial.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Is that it? You got more?
Got more.
Oh my gosh.
Quick ones.
Okay. Is this the lightning round?
Lightning round. You had a 94 last year that you swapped for this 100. Any regrets?
No.
If you could change one thing about this ski, what would it be and why?
Whew. I don't know.
The stumper.
I'd be interested to ski it like at 1,800 grams.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be over 2,000, but I would be interested to see what it felt like if you moved the needle just a tiny bit from lightweight to strong.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
And I wouldn't want to change like the flex pattern or the feel or anything like that. I'm curious what that would feel like.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't confidently say that I want to change that about the ski. I suppose I would also be interested in skiing it with a true center mount point. Mm-hmm. Like if it had symmetrical tip and tail rocker,
Right.
I would be interested to ski that, but then it wouldn't be as good in the trees. And I think that's pretty important for this ski, is it shouldn't just be a straightforward dedicated park ski, because it's 100 underfoot.
Yeah, no,
So
that makes sense.
these are personal things that I might prefer, but I kind of like, it's a hard question because I would be really nervous about changing anything about it, if that makes sense.
Well, the question was if you could change.
And I can't,
Okay.
because I'm not Armada. So no, I wouldn't really change much about it. I don't think.
All right.
Again, there's a specific application for it.
Sure.
Like, I could stand here and be like, oh, I wish it would like lay over a super G turn.
Yeah.
But then like, what are we even talking about at that point? That's not the purpose of the ski, and nor should it be.
Right.
And when I ski this, I don't ski it with that mentality. I ski a little bit more upright. I just kind of like bop and play around, and then every once in a while throw in like a fun high edge angle, super flexy carve on a low angle or relatively moderately pitched groomer with nice snow.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it this morning. If like you took it down icy hayride, good luck.
Yeah, not a
which
great
is
option.
Steep. It's like former race trail. You know what I feel like is worth bringing up before we finish here? We had a lot of different people ski this last year, like throughout our testing on it last year.
Yep.
And a lot of people that typically ski heavier, stiffer skis were absolutely loving it. And I think it opened a lot of people's eyes to the fact that even for a really, really good skier with a race background, sometimes it's more fun to get on something like this.
Right. You see lightweight twin tip and you think, not for me and my skill set.
Correct.
But the reality of it is vastly different. And I've had the same experience where, especially after the outgoing 96, where I really like the stability of that thing. And I like the weight of it. Was not totally jazzed on this, but you get on it and the reality is much different.
Right. And you're like, oh, right. Like, I'm not racing.
Yeah.
I'm not competing in any format. And like, I ended my written review of this ski in this same way, so this is appropriate if we end the video this way. Isn't skiing just supposed to be fun?
I think so. I think it is. You just got to let yourself do it.
Right. And I think like you could argue that any ski is fun to ski, but I think it's refreshing and particularly fun often, and for a lot of people, to get on something like this and just play.
Yeah, I think that's a great point.
Yeah. So I haven't shared anything about next year's ARV, ARW line. I'll just throw out some teasers. A lot of the themes that that we're talking about in this video carry over. These skis do not go away.
Good.
And maybe we get more. So anyways, that is the ARW and ARV 100. Let us know if you have any questions about them, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.